Welcome to the Filthy Badge series,
Police officers take an oath to protect and serve,
where we go precinct to precinct finding the dirtiest cops.
Deli joined the force in 2015, but tonight he's in jail charged with rape.
Some officers across the country are misusing that authority.
And now, the accused.
In April 2015, Officer Slager pulled Walter Scott over during a routine traffic stop, and Scott ended up running from his car. The North Charleston, South Carolina man was pulled over originally for a non-functioning brake light. Officer Michael Slager returned to his police cruiser to run license tags and insurance. In the video, you can see Walter Scott attempted to get out of his car and say something to the officer when the officer commanded him to sit back down in his vehicle. Video shows Scott sitting for a few moments and then opening the door and bolting away from his car. The video shows Officer Slager give short chase, stops, and then opens fire, firing 8 shots into the 50-year-old unarmed man's back as he attempted to flee from the scene. The officer first claimed that he shot Walter Scott in a duel for his police-issued taser. Video also shows the officer dropping an object which later to reveal to be the taser by the slain body of the man. But what the officer didn't know, the innocent bystander was recording the whole incident the entire time. When the video of the incident began to surface, the black community began to be enraged and break out in protest, believing that the shooting was racially motivated, generating a widespread controversy because that same video contradicts everything that the officer said that happened. The case was independently investigated by SLED, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, and as well as many other agencies. In June of 2015, a South Carolina grand jury indicted Slager on a charge of murder. He was released on bond in January 2016. In late 2016, a 5-week trial ended in a mistrial due to a hung jury. In May of 2016, Slager was indicted on federal charges including violation of Scott's civil rights and obstruction of justice. In May of 2017, a plea agreement was reached. Slager pleaded guilty to federal charges of civil rights violation, and he was returned to jail for pending sentencing. In return for his guilty plea, the state's murder charges were dropped. In December 2017, Slager was sentenced to 20 years in prison, with the federal judge determining the underlying offense was second-degree murder. Michael Slager would then file for an appeal, and in January of 2019, an appeal of the 20-year sentence was denied by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. Savage and his team accused Norton of making procedural errors and flawed legal reasonings while presiding over the case. Judge David Norton was the judge handling the affairs, by the way, that day in court. After the U.S. Supreme Court declined to take up the case that June, Slager enlisted the help of a new defense attorney, Christopher Gill. Gill, in May 2020, submitted a new motion to the U.S. District Court, and he was asking for the sentence to be vacated, with Savage admitting he was ineffective as counsel. Savage directed partial blame towards Norton for his self-assessed lackluster defense. Savage claims Norton once said in a closed-door meeting in chambers with attorneys Slager's case was not a murder case. Savage argued he took Norton's word to heart and that blind trust led to decisions resulting in a worse outcome for Slager. The malfunctions included not advising Slager of a pretrial manslaughter plea offer from the Department of Justice and U.S. Attorney's Office. Savage said that he didn't even brief Slager about the offer, holding on to Norton's words and thinking an even lesser charge threshold may be in play. But Slager claimed in his own memo he would have accepted such a plea, but affirmed he never knew anything about it and Savage never told him about it. At a January 2017 ex parte conference, Norton informed those present that it was his opinion that this clearly was not a murder case. Savage writes in his memo, "I accepted the court's words as his thoughtful conclusion. Following that conference, I proceeded with the firm impression that this was the settled position of the court, and I accepted his word as it was given." Slager, in August 2020, would go on to ask Norton to rescue himself from the trial going forward, based on Savage's testimony. The next month, the case was reassigned to U.S. District Court
Judge
Richard Jurgel. Jurgel previously acted as the presiding judge during the trial of Dylan Roof, who was convicted of 33 federal charges following the deadly shooting at the Mother Emanuel AME Church. In January of 2021, Jurgel granted Slager's and Gill's requests for a hearing based on new evidence, alleging in Gill's appeal and the memos from Slager and Savage. Earlier this March, U.S. Attorney Rhett DeHart asked Jurgel to rule Slager's attorney-client privilege with former defense team be provoked so prosecutors could question Slager's ex-attorneys. And Jurgel granted the request, but nonetheless, Michael Slager is still serving that 20-year prison sentence for the slaying of an unarmed 50-year-old military veteran, Walter Scott. After the sentencing, Scott's younger brother, Rodney Scott, had this
Good
to say as
afternoon.
well.
My name is Rodney Scott. I'm the younger brother of Walter Scott. A songwriter wrote a song, said, "We have come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord." And that's exactly what we did.
Did you shoot Walter Scott?
I did.
The decision's so rare, it's historic. The Department of Justice has indicted the former police officer who killed Walter Scott on charges of violating civil rights.
He will be charged with murder.
Michael Slager shot and killed Scott in April 2015. Shortly after, Slager was charged with murder by a South Carolina grand jury. He has since posted bail and has been on house arrest since January. Slager now faces life in prison in both state and federal cases, plus a possible $250,000 fine. Both of Slager's indictments are rare occurrences for police-involved shootings, but Slager's situation is especially rare. The indictment of any officer in a police-involved shooting is uncommon. According to the Washington Post, 990 people were shot and killed by police in 2015. For those deaths, 18 officers were charged. And the Justice Department has a long history of declining to bring federal civil rights charges against police officers. According to an analysis by the Pittsburgh Tribune Review, between 1995 and 2015, the DOJ rejected 96% of the more than 13,000 civil rights complaints against officers. In fact, between 2005 and early 2015, only 7 officers were in Slager's position, facing federal civil rights charges and state charges for police-involved shootings. 2 of those officers were tried and convicted for shooting a 92-year-old woman in Atlanta during a botched drug raid and planting evidence in the home. The other 5 were convicted for a shooting in the days following Hurricane Katrina and for lying about the events that led to the shooting.